Well, welcome everybody. We're just opening the gate, so to speak, the digital gate, and everyone's starting to come in, and we don't have the noise of chairs shuffling around. We're back to a Zoom call today, which makes it great for me. So I can be there. Understand the in-person ones went quite well. I'm happy to hear all about that. I'm Rick Bushnell, and I was president of the foundation some years ago and serve on the Environmental Stewardship Committee along with Darlene Cavalier, who's on the call, and a number of you have met Darlene. We want to thank the foundation for hosting these events. We appreciate that, and we all enjoy it, and the foundation enjoys it as well. And just a reminder to consider supporting the foundation either through membership or a donation or just participating in the many activities and events that they have. They've got their registration for camp is open now, and I think that's going to fill up pretty quickly. So any of you have friends and relatives that'll be visiting, it's a great camp. And then many other things that are going on at the foundation that are at the website and then in their catalog. There is a show up right now that you might enjoy, and then the next show that's coming up, I don't know the date for it, but it's local artists. So I think you all may really enjoy that. So just to get started, our basic premise, of course, is to advance everyone's knowledge and understanding so we can go and do something. It's great to have the knowledge. It's great to have some insight to be able to talk at cocktail parties and sitting on the beach and waiting for the fish to bite and do those kinds of things. But we'd really, as many of you know, have kind of shifted in encouraging you all to participate in some level of citizen science. It doesn't have to be heavy. There are a lot of them, and Darlene has showed you the link that we have to SciStarter, where there are all kinds of activities that you can participate in. So more than just participating in knowledge, we want you to go and do something. And that is a great segue into our speaker today, Angela Andersen, who is really the driving force behind the field station that Long Beach Township has down on Osborne Avenue in Holgate, and Angela is going to be telling you all about that. She never talked, and many of you, I guess, registered, so the hidden gem in Holgate, which I think you're going to find very, very interesting. I've known Angela for a number of years. She has down here that she has 3 decades. She was like 7 years old when she started. And she's been involved in a lot of things. I see this is something new. She's an ambassador of the Oyster Master Guild. I have to find out more about just what that is. But Angela is a delightful speaker, a lot of experience in her very few years, great deal of experience. She's a kayaker. She's a lover of nature. Gardening and rain gardens and all those things. So she really has a great background to do all this. And she is the resilience project manager for Long Beach Township. So she also understands a lot of what's going on in Long Beach Township. And because of that, a lot of what's going on up and down the island, since the various municipalities work together in a variety of activities. So just to close things out, she has her Bachelor of Science in Environmental Studies. She's got 2 boys, and they are big kids, and a puppy. So we will encourage questions throughout the session. Angela does not mind being interrupted. I'm going to ask Darlene to keep an eye on the chat. So if you have a question, put it into the chat, and we will try and save some time for conversation and questions at the end. So without any further ado, let's take it away, Angela.
All right. Thank you, Rick. Let me just do my least skill set first and get my program up for everybody to see. Does everybody see it okay?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. All righty. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Sorry that we're not in person today. I have people outside bagging up some shell right here at the field station. So I can't be in two places at one time as much as I would like to be in person with everybody. So thank you for that lovely introduction, Rick. Many of you, I see some very familiar names on the call and some new people. So thanks for taking an hour out of your Saturday, the first kind of springish day that we have. But I think that you guys will find this entertaining. I think you'll find it interesting. I don't know how many of you have been to our facility here. And I inadvertently sometimes say field station and I say foundation because I worked so closely with Rick at the foundation for so many years. Back in through the 2010 on until we opened this facility. So working with the foundation and all the things we did up there to really build the science programming there really gave me the toolkit to when we were establishing this facility down here. So don't mind if I sometimes say foundation and I mean field station.
It's the F word.
Exactly. So, we figure it out. So this is what we're going to talk about today, the Long Beach Township Marine Education Field Station. Some of you may have been here, some of you may not have. We were established in 2021. And we are located 127 West Osborne Avenue. It's really funny because when I say to people we're in Holgate, people drive all the way down to the refuge and they say, I don't know where your building is. Because when you say Holgate, I think people think it's Beach Haven until maybe they get to the end of the road there. So we are really like that first street when you come out of South Beach Haven, right? So it is like down a residential street on the bayfront. So hence that sort of hidden gem where you could go down the boulevard, you see the flags and the things for the foundation. We're really kind of tucked away. I'm working on getting maybe a little sign to mark where we are. So this was, I don't have to go through this. Rick already went through who I am and why I am here and what I get to do every day, which is a gift. I live on the island. I live about 1.5 miles away from the facility. And I've been working with Long Beach Township for about 16 years, but I've been doing this forever. Some of my colleagues that I see on the call for decades, so they can vouch for my decades on that. But, when you kind of have this sort of, you fall in love with something or somewhere, it becomes this natural thing to want to learn more about and do more about. So my entire career has been based on just my simple love for this place, the ocean, the bay, Long Beach Island. Even though I am an Italian from North Jersey, I'm Angela Cantillo from Bergen County. I've had deep roots here my whole life, summering until I met my husband and we dug our roots here. And I think that that's what most of us that are here, there's just this special place. And when you say LBI, no matter where you travel in the world, there's always some linkage. Someone's like, oh my God, Long Beach Island. So that's a shared thing that we have together, as we go through today's talk. And that's what it's all based out of. It's just that simple. I got lucky that my dad built a house in 1969, kind of thing. So I love to show this picture, that whole how it started, how it's going thing. So back in this picture was probably, I think it was before 2017, but that's how I sort of have it listed there. This was a regular day. This wasn't any kind of a big storm. And I just want you to kind of pay attention to the bulkhead, right? You can see there towards the right hand of the end of the street. This was very common. What this end of this street area looked like. We have the marina next door. This property was Old Buoy 77 Marina back in the day. And as you'll look at that bulkhead, you'll see like sort of the cutout area where they had the boat lift. The whole property of the marina really went from the bay up to the what would be West Avenue that runs into Beach Haven and then also south further into Holgate. It was very early on in the township's work towards resilience, right? That's what we're always doing is we're working towards resilience. So this idea of establishing something like this really just came from the mayor just sort of talking up with me in the hallway, like, what do you think, Ange? Like, let's open up some kind of a facility. And the way we go about it as a municipality that maybe some of the other towns are kind of coming up, but we were kind of early in that creative funding source type of a thing. So we have an open space trust in township, and it's and it's really was after Sandy. We said, we really need to obviously accommodate what we need for the oceanside beach replenishment, right? We buy parcels so that we could really align with the federal government's need for public access on the ocean side to allow us to have that beach replenishment. So the thought process for us was also kind of looking at that on that bayfront side, right? So improving public access, improving resilience, because when Sandy came, the damage and the solutions, right, are truly on this bayside. So acquiring properties like this to build something like this is a little bit kind of flip-flop. I talked to a lot of my university friends where the university would say, we want to build something that is a research education facility. We need to go to a town to see if we can lease some land or buy some land or partner with them. We did it a little bit backwards, where we said, we really think that this is important. We should be building a facility like this, and let's try it out. And so we did. I don't know if any of you came when we had our super awesome double wide. I call it a camper, but it's trailer. You can see again that lower bulkhead. You can see where the notch is there. Kind of just keep an eye on that. There was a big frag area to the south of the notch there, and we tried it out. It was that test, and again, that the relationships I've built along the way, working with all of my Barnegat Bay Watershed Association friends now through the Barnegat Bay Estuary Program, the Littoral Society, on and on and on through the years. And then working with the foundation, I was really well equipped in the job at the township to be able to help pull this together, right? Based on all of those relationships and all of the people that are doing the good work in our area. And it worked. It was a little rustic. I think, we had a little bit of rain on the inside of the building at times. But, rather than just like build this thing and then sit around and wait, we did it incrementally, and we're like, we're on the right track. So here now we have this beautiful building. Our DPW crew built the whole facility, and it is beautiful. It is everything that we wanted, I would say, except for parking. It's our only drawback. So we're like, ride your bike, take the shuttle, carpool, that kind of a thing. So I'd say that's our only drawback, but it is, the learning space upstairs. If you go to our website, you can see some pictures, and then we have the lab space downstairs, and in the outside classroom, and everything that you'd want a facility to be, screaming right out on the bayfront. Across the street, as we built this facility, I'm standing on the porch now. You see this picture to the left, kind of looking across at the marina across the street. This was real early on. My years back with the DEP doing mapping when I was in college, and the coastal mapping for all the coastal rules, wetlands, CAFRA, I looked at the map. You can see just where those trailers are back beyond the black Suburban. That was going to be a road that was going to connect to where those houses are. And that whole marsh to the left was on the tax map is all parceled out. And so I knew that we owned that whole easement. So we talked to our neighbor there and said, hey, can you move your stuff over about 15 feet? And we just put in that small walking path that you can see on the right. And we kept it very rustic, where you can see where the kayaks are there now. Of course, it was somewhat selfish on my part because I love kayaking. But if we're talking about public access, if we're talking about in the field research, this was really important. And I was really happy that I came upon the mapping of that area to be able to get this piece added on to what we already had going here. It really has, it made everything come together. But what it also did, it was a very nice intro into the neighborhood, because a lot of people were like, this is fantastic. I bought a house on this street because of that versus another area. Because when we're talking about public access, think about it on the island, like where you can go if you are a kayaker or you're a paddleboarder. The street ends, not accommodating. So these types of things are really important to get those immersive experiences, that ecotourism, all of that stuff. So this was sort of a little bit for me, a little bit for the field station, and a lot of it for the community. So you can see the path. It looks very, kind of benign. We, of course, have people that have insisted that they're going to drive down there, but that's a whole other story I could go into another time. We had to get somebody pulled out, but that's that. But when you look at that bottom picture, that's that pocket marsh that you could see when now you go down and around and you look to the east. So there's a lot of work that we do there with the MATE students. It has just become this whole living laboratory in this outside area. We've inventoried all of the plant species all along the walking path there. So we have, different IDs all along there. In the summertime, people can do that. We have groups that come homeschooling, and we do field sketch and journaling, all that kind of stuff. And I do a bring your own kayak tour on Wednesday mornings out into our Clam Cove area, which I'll talk a little bit about in a couple of minutes. So there's this bulkhead. Remember the bulkhead? So this is our souped up, super duper bulkheads that the township has now become very well known for. Resilient, higher bulkheads. This really defined the place. We left the notch in there because we have a lot of activities that we hang off the side of the bulkhead there. We have little habispats where I have students monitoring if we have any spat on shell, which I'll talk a little bit about. All these different traps for food for our lab inside, for all the critters in the fish tanks. But the idea behind these heightened bulkheads, and this in itself becomes an education and a talking piece. The township decided early on after Sandy that we were going to start raising the height of our street end bulkheads. We are seeing stronger storms, more storms, higher levels of water, all of that stuff. But this is really in an effort to protect our infrastructure, right? Every single time one of the street ends would get washed out, we got to go there. We got to fix it. It also puts the street end people in jeopardy if there's an emergency and we can't get to them. So popular, not popular, different in each of the towns. It's what the town's doing. It has benefited us greatly here because we did the street end here, and then we just ran it all along this property here. And it's created a really nice meeting area. You can see that's Holgate Taxpayers Association. They come here and they do their meetings here each year. So it's very well utilized. When you look in underneath there, you can see the outdoor classroom underneath the stairwell there. There's Abby and the Stockton students. That might even be, I'm not sure if that's Forest or not. When we first started with the Stockton University's Aquarium and Aquaculture Club, they sponsored a 300-gallon tank for us to do a replica of the oyster reef, where our shell that we've been recycling from the restaurants on the island have gone in partnership with Stockton and Parsons, with funding from the Barnegat Bay Partnership originally for the Tuckerton Research Reef, which is right out here in the bay. And our shell went there from 2017 to 2021. You can see what the downstairs lab looks like, and when you look out the door of the lab. So really great space. We've come a long way. Each year we add a little something new in the lab space for that hands-on stuff. Outside, we've really started, again, this gleaned from the foundation, right? When Rick and I were working, it was like Nancy and John Petralia were still around working on the science. The weather station there on the left-hand side, and the marsh camera, we call it, up at the foundation, and there's that real-time visual that you can always kind of see what's happening. You can always look out at the bay. I say to anybody that comes by, you can go onto the field station's website and you can watch an LBI sunset anywhere you are in the world. If you go and you can check that out. But the idea behind this trifecta of technology that we have is we have a real-time weather station, we have the real-time camera, and through one of our grants and in partnership with Monmouth University Urban Coast Institute, we got a new tide gauge installed here. That research and information and real-time visual is informing the work that we're doing in the Bay and the work that we're doing with the Bay Islands. But it's also a hook that's engaging people when they come to our website. They can get that real-time data. Don't go onto the website today because not all the data is up to date, and we are having some difficulties from a lightning strike. But when all the stars align, this is what we'll have, and we hopefully have that fixed by Memorial Day. But it is for research. We don't want anybody navigating with the tide gauge and be like, I saw your tide gauge said it was this tide or that. It's really research purposes, but I think it's an engaging piece for the community to be able to see that, predict that, get in tune with what the weather patterns are and the predictions. Project Terrapin, of course, I'm sure if we were in the audience, everyone knows, we've got our terrapins. There's a lot of work on the north end with the terrapin nesting project. And down here, we kind of partner with Project Terrapin. They're like, kind of cousins, right? They're separately run, but they're kind of organized together through a very big network of terrapin researchers in the state of New Jersey. It was one of the first things we did. It was our first summer that we started. And you can see John Wennick there digging the first hole there for the first in-ground hatchery there. And Michelle Budd, she is a local around the corner that is the lead researcher there. There was a guy up the street when I first opened the building, Chuck, and it was his last year before he and his wife were retiring and moving to Florida. He had all of this stuff in his yard. He had all the baby pools in his garage. And he goes, well, everyone likes sunset and happy hours and looking at the baby turtles. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to go in that direction. So I started kind of adopting all of those, community based terrapin, happy hours, if you will. So we put a little turtle corral down in the lab space because they're very serious, right? These are they're not threatened species, but they're of special concern, and they are ours. They are our resident turtle. We love them. They're here all the time. And we wanted to make sure that the corral was that you come into the lab, but that unless you're invited into the fenced in area, that is for Michelle and John, and that is for research, because they do come and they inspect and they know that we take it seriously, and Michelle is meticulous. It is truly engaging, and Terrapin Tuesdays are wild and crazy here. Everybody loves it, and everybody in the neighborhood understands it. As you can, if you're in an area on the north end, there's certain areas with the turtle site fidelity. A lot of areas in that Brant Beach area, anywhere there's a sandy beach, you're going to start to see them. And that site fidelity they have is that memory, that multi-generational memory of where to go and where to come back to. So really engaging into the community to understand when you're a hot spot, there's certain level of stewardship that you should have. And we want to be that resource to help you know what to do, who to talk to, how to handle it if you see one nesting in your yard. And those types of things. So you can see, Michelle will go and she'll relocate hatchlings that are maybe in somebody's driveway, and then she'll take care of them and then release them, when they're in a safer spot, very, very close to where the location was. She'll dig up eggs. Now only she can dig up the eggs and put them into the hatcheries. Really, one of the bigger things is managing the nesting females crossing the road. We've seen it a lot of times up at the foundation. And luckily we're on a little bit of a side street here where they're getting hit. Big deal. But once your eyes are open to that and you understand when you're down here in this area, from May till, July or August, keep an eye on the road, slow down. If you see a turtle, those kinds of things, you just kind of get into the rhythm with that. We have a number of schools around the state that work on the Head Start program. So they kind of grow them up in the school year and bring them here for release. My neighbor right next door happens to be one of them, Tina, up at Bear Tavern School. So she comes and Head Starts all the time. So it's just been a great, hook. People putting together cages, looking at the hatcheries. We're going to put in a second raised platform. So a lot of what we're doing here is funded by grants. That's one of the things that, you do when you're working for a town or a nonprofit. Grant writing is the heart and soul of it, besides the relationship building and the volunteers and the donations. So some of the things that we've put into the lab and outside have come from Sustainable Jersey grants. We are been a Sustainable Jersey town since 2009, certified. So the top is the wave tank we just did last year, and that's going to show some of the erosion on the marsh. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The bottom ones are our pollinator pots. We don't have anywhere to really put the rain garden like we have up at the foundation. So our pollinator pots all around, and the LBI Garden Club is helping me maintain those and keep their beauty and functionality. So these little small grants really add up. They're 5,000, 5,000. You can really go far on a budget like that when you have a lot of community help in there. One of our big things, of course, that we do at the township, I don't know if any of you guys have seen our truck driving around. Our shell recycling came to be out of 2017, out of a film I worked on called the Oyster Farmers film. Call to action for that was shell recycling. There was a sort of a pilot project going to collect shell from a couple of the restaurants with the American Literal Society and Stockton University. And we decided, like, let's really do this. And Mayor Mancini really felt strongly as a person who grew up here and understands the values. So we dedicated our staff and a truck. So the DPW of Long Beach Township goes around and picks up from 12 restaurants on the island. And we are the only town in the state of New Jersey that does this. And we are working with the other groups in the state that handle shell to sort of really get this to be a bigger thing. We're working closely with the Barnegat Bay Partnership on that, and the state shellfish folks that also recycle shell down in Atlantic City. A lot of shell, each bushel weighs about 50 pounds. We've done about 60,000 bushels. Jetty Rock Foundation is our marketing outreach partner, and they've done all of this. So there's these images are very similar to some of the display that we have downstairs with our oyster reef tank. So you can, just like I have today, right now I have my 2023 shell out here. We have bagging volunteers out there bagging them up for a shoreline project that we're working on across the water here at Clam Cove Reserve. This is an initiative that came out of a Bay Island initiative that we formed a coalition of groups, right? The township, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, some of the universities, Nature Conservancy. Again, in that mindset I had originally said of, resilience really is ocean, but it's bay, but it's more than the bay. It's what's in the bay, right? The bay is not just water, right? There's these green dots everywhere, these beautiful Bay Islands, nature intended. What are they? Where are they? How many of them are there? What function do they have? Their habitat, their storm surge, they have historical context of what they are, and they're waning, right? They're disappearing, they're eroding, and there's a number of factors that are causing that. So the idea of forming this Bay Island Initiative group, and we just had our 5-year anniversary as a group. We started March 2020, and we know what March 2020 was for everybody when we were just going into COVID. And we've never missed a monthly meeting. And it is a dynamite group of people. And we've inventoried every Bay Island so far from northern Barnegat Bay into Great Bay. You can go to the NewJerseyBayIslands.org, and you can go on there, and there's a link to the Bay Island Restoration Planner on there, and you can go onto all of the islands, and it'll give you how those islands have been behaving for the last few decades, which would inform how they may be able to be restored or not, or whatever. So from that partnership and the initiative into the Bay Island Initiative, we started working very, very closely with Stockton and Monmouth to start doing field studies. Stockton inventoried and put onto that database, that BURP database, all of those islands. And of course, this island that we own as a municipality right across from me, again, Clam Cove Reserve, this is them out there studying it, taking a look at it. That's a core sample in some areas where it can tell you a story of that marsh, right? It can tell you a story of what is the history of that marsh? Where is there a lot of sand sediment in there? What type of organic materials in there? That alone, that bottom left slide could tell a story we could talk about for hours, right? And that surface area, all that sand, all that new sand that's forming on top of this, we're like, where'd that sand come from? You know, and tracking that sediment migration that we have from the beach replenishment through the inlet into the bay, now washing up on parts of these bay islands. It's just really fascinating stuff. Stockton's Coastal Research Centers, Dynamite, and Monmouth Urban Coast Institute, and, you know, just working together on all of these grants. This is a screenshot of that Bay Island Restoration Planner, so you can kind of get an idea of the types of information that you could see if you go onto that. We'll be doing programming about this here at the facility in the summer. You can come and bag up some shell. We can do a demo of the burp, and start looking at different ways that they're behaving. Will tell you what you could maybe do to help restore them, right? So if it's sinking, you might need to do like what they would call thin layer deposition to make them bigger and higher. But if they're eroding away and they're losing acreage, that's where maybe some of that shell bagging and that stabilization of that shoreline from wind and wave and wakes, where we would build it out with the shell bagging, maybe backfill it with some dredge and doing plantings. So in that vein and in that idea, we got one of 3 grants from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. This is an extremely important funding source for this type of work all over our nation. It is currently under threat. We were frozen for about 24 hours and we're unfrozen. Absolutely essential resource for every restoration practitioner that I know. You used to say NIFWF, which is the acronym, and you kind of would get a cringe because NIFWF, it's a very complicated system to work through, but an excellent stable source of funding for restoration work in our country. And any chance you get to call it on the mountain, just please do. We've gotten, our first grant was to do an inventory of the islands in and near the township and prioritize them and come up with maybe a restoration idea. And this is that aerial of our priority area that we used burp for, but also because we own this. This is that Clam Cove Reserve I was telling you guys about. I'm staring at it right now out my window. Anyone driving down the boulevard in Holgate, and you could see towards the ocean there, that washover area after Sandy, where the dunes washed over onto the marsh, there was a threat of this area becoming, you know, housing. Long story short, all the other nonsense aside, the township and Ocean County Natural Land Trust got together and we jointly purchased the 22 acres, 51% township, 49% Ocean County. So us as the stewards, as any land you would buy, you have to maintain it. So we're really looking at that bottom, that western shoreline, and that cut. That cut wasn't there. When you look at the history of what this area looked like, that big open water space and that meandering little creek there were not there. It was all one peninsula with just a small, you know, little pocket of water. So as we see this separating, we're focusing on that that little spit there to start to stabilize that area. The other area that we're looking under that same NIFWF grant, and another area that the township owns partially, is this western Marsh Shelter Island off of the Spray Beach section of township. Fish and Wildlife owns the majority of it, but the lots to the bottom there are the township purchased. We see the value in, it was privately owned. We approached the owner and you know, now we're working with Fish and Wildlife to prioritize it. So this is sort of just a really cool slide of what Stockton would do when they're looking at that edge. They're looking at the height. They're looking at that 77 shoreline, which is like this magic date in New Jersey, where that was where, like, apparently that's where you can build out to in New Jersey, because that is when the Tidelands line was established. So you can see how the lines have changed. So this is a priority area, as well as Clam Cove Reserve. This is just a picture, again, back to Clam Cove, to show the grid and how Stockton breaks it down and looks at the edge. This larger picture is showing different types of very dramatic erosion on our edges. So we're watching this over time, and we are focusing again on that bottom picture there. That little clump is gone, and that spit is really very vulnerable. When you build something back, this is what you want to see. You want to see these really healthy edges. You want to see that bottom picture there where you see these ribbed mussels clumped down at the bottom, you see the beautiful Spartina grass. That is what a healthy edge would look like. And when you see that picture before, the damage. So these are some slides of some ideas and approaches that people have taken utilizing shell, core logs. We learned a lot from Mordecai and Reclaim the Bay to the north of us here at Mordecai off of Beach Haven. All these different techniques that other partners kind of using that biomimicry of nature, right? Nature has it figured out. So how can we help do that? I know Jim Dugan is working to try to figure out how to get that ribbed mussel, population back. And he's doing some experiments right up to the north of us. So we're all like doing this together, even though we're each individually working on our own projects. There's another picture of that little spit from Clam Cove. In the interim of that very complicated NIFWIF grant funding, we were able to secure additional funding from New Jersey Resources. All of us pay New Jersey Natural Gas, right? So they have a community fund. So I know it burns any, especially in the winter if you've got gas-based heat, but know that they do have this wonderful parent company that does these awesome community-based programming, and many of our partners have benefited from that. They're helping us kind of fast track our very first piece of that restoration effort for that southern western spit at Clam Cove while we're working on our multi-year NIFWIF grant for the whole 900 feet. This other kind of planning policy thing, there's probably some of you guys are on there that you've heard us talk about Resilient New Jersey. You're either rolling your eyes or being like, oh my God, I can't believe you guys are still doing it. It's been a long time, but the very long story short on this is all this work that we had been doing up till 2017 as a municipality, really focusing towards resilience early on, putting that as a priority. The state of New Jersey came up with this Resilient New Jersey project to do regional resilience planning. And we were chosen as one of the 4 regions. You can see the colors, we're yellow. And to work together as towns to work on what resilience looks like, and also to do a regional, which means island-wide coastal vulnerability assessment. You can't just do this work. All of us know Long Beach Island. We all know we're 6 towns. We all know Township is the largest 12 non-contiguous miles of the 18. So you can't just do this work in one town. We all have to kind of know that we all have the same bridge we got to get on and off of, right? We all are swimming in the same ocean. We're swimming in the same bay. We've got to tie our utilities together. So this idea of looking at our vulnerabilities and some of our solutions together was the idea. Painful process a lot of the time. I'm going to say I have very strong stick-to-itiveness, and we have seen deliverables. We have a coastal vulnerability assessment now regional for the town, which helps all of us in our insurance premiums for our CRS points. But one of the deliverables that I want to focus on, we did achieve another NIFWIF grant for this. Our DPW yard is there. Our beach patrol life-saving is there. We have a Verizon hub. We have an Ocean County Utilities Authority pump station. This is in the area where Joey's Pizza used to be, K2 used to be, our DPW yard. So we got this grant as a deliverable of our Resilient New Jersey work to protect our critical infrastructure and work on this shoreline here. So we are working with our team now to start implementing the research and design concepts for this shoreline area. This one I'm just about over here. The New Jersey Coastal Resilience Collaborative is another sort of, again, just building these bigger relationships. I run jointly with Alyssa from BRIC, the municipal work group within this framework. This is a top-notch resource of partners, private, public, university, working, everybody that is working in one way or another. We're trying to write the book, right? Truly, from the charm and the restoration habitat work groups, like, what does this work look like? How do you even approach and start this stuff? Here's the types of people you need to get in touch with, consultants, or what you would need. These are the types of permits you would need to do, and here's the process. So we're truly trying to write the book. You go to the website, there's a wonderful resource list there. We have technical coffee chats quarterly that are excellent. We really, Amanda Archer from JC Nair puts those together. They're recorded. They're a wealth of information on some really, like, what are other towns doing? What are other communities doing? What are other resource professionals doing around the state? It kind of brings us all together into like one unit so that we can sort of drive this, so that we can be on the coast as long as, you know, we can be here. And the livability, the understanding, the research, that historical context, it's all in there. So this is one of like the newer, really great, you know, groups that I've been part of. So kind of looking forward to 2025 here. All this work is coming right out of this facility. This is all the stuff that we're doing, and we're translating that into public programming, events, specialized corporate retreats. New Jersey Marine Education Association's doing their Teach at the Beach here this year. Barnegat Bay Partnership did a retreat here. The Bay Islands did a retreat here. Deloitte Company did a corporate retreat here. So we're doing that kind of stuff. And then we're doing daily programming, just this hands-on stuff, from tie-dye to science to dissections. We're going to start a new afternoon enrichment camp with the Marine Logics Marine Science Camp. They do something over at the Maritime Museum in the mornings. They're going to come here 2 afternoons. Doing jewelry making with Jen O'Reilly, Joe's Oyster Garden, really just getting people engaged in different ways. Because again, like I said there, like resilience is also human, and it's really about these relationships that we're building along the way and these collaborations. And especially now, that camaraderie and staying positive, that's because together, like, we literally can do anything. So that's all I've got. That's me. So come down and see me.
Well, as usual, talk, talking to talking to Angela is sort of like trying to get a sip of water from a fire hose. There's an awful lot behind that. But we do have some time, so let's see if there's some questions. I'm going to go back to something that Angela showed that maybe she could amplify a little bit on, and that was that core sample. Um, and I've worked, you know, with many organizations that have done those things, and DEP was doing them all up and down the bay. It was fantastic. But if you would, Angela, just tell us a little bit about the history that's shown in a core sample. Maybe start off with what is that core sample, and then a little bit of the history that it reveals.
Yeah. So those the core samples are being done. There's probably some people on the call that would know exactly who's actually doing all of them now. But they're telling us a story, right? What we see on the surface is what we see on the surface. What we see in historical maps is what we know, right? But when you go, they kind of say that subaqueous, that soil depth beneath that bottom of the bay tells the story, right? And it tells us of historical inlets, where inlets may have been, where forests may have been, where there may have been, you know, other structures that you're unaware of because they've been covered over in time. And that sediment, those sediment layers, is kind of like when you're looking at a tree. Essentially, you're looking at these years of time, history, sediment changes, storms, catastrophic events, all that stuff. And it gives you trends, it gives you a deeper understanding. And then from a Bay Island perspective, you can talk about that stability. Like, maybe it looks like it's marsh on bottom, but wow, we've got an entire layer of sand. Or it looks like it's sand on the top, but wow, we've got a lot. Maybe that area wouldn't support a restoration effort, right? Because it's not going to be strong enough. The integrity of that internal part, maybe of that marsh, wouldn't be able to handle, say, that thin layer deposition. So it's telling a story of historical context, what we've had, what could potentially be done there. But again, from that restoration lens, it does tell you, I don't know if the weight of like the oyster shells or the fill or whatever, that integrity of that soil could be able to handle it.
Yeah, and I know that 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 kind of information is so necessary, just as you were saying, to if you're going to try and save a marsh edge or something, you need to know the history of what that marsh edge was, and we've got aerial photographs going back to the 30s that'll tell us what the shoreline was, certainly before the 1977 line. However, what was it like 500 years before that? And so I find that stuff very fascinating. And that edge that you were showing the calving and one thing or another, and you mentioned Mordecai Island, and just to amplify for some people that may not know, Mordecai Island is an island that's closer to Beach Haven. And there is the Mordecai Island Land Trust that has been working for years to try and reduce the amount of erosion and protect that island, because it's such an important part of the habitat for a variety of species that need that kind of an environment, and lessons learned. And Angela mentioned Reclaim the Bay's had a great deal to do with that. And there's a fellow named Jim Dugan who has spoken before for the foundation, at the foundation, about the work going on there. And Angela made a very important statement, and that is, although these are individual activities, and Reclaim the Bay's worked with them over in Little Egg Harbor and other places, these are individual projects, but they do dialogue with each other to learn from each other. And it's a really important part. And we don't really have anyone at the state level or the county level that's really pulling this together. It's mainly being done by municipalities and by individual organizations who themselves get together and share information. DEP has done a great deal. I don't want to say they haven't. And certainly Jacques Cousteau, J.C. Nair, has done a great deal, but they're all working together. So when Angela kind of mentions that, I'll just want to underscore it, that it's a really important part. And that's an important part where you can participate at two things. One, Angela mentioned about the shell bagging activities and the fact that that the township is collecting a lot of shell. Other municipalities are looking at that. DEP is trying to put some things together that would help municipalities do that. Reclaim the Bay uses that shell when we're helping stabilize shorelines all along the edge, and Reclaim the Bay has its shell bagging days too. So just thought I'd throw in a couple of comments. Any other questions there, Darlene?
One that's just more logistics, and this is just, will this be available to rewatch? And so, yes, we will send everybody who registered. Jenna from the foundation will send you a link to the recording. Thanks.
Very good. Any other comments or questions, observations? Since we have another minute or two, Darlene, what are some of the sci-starter or naturalist kind of activities that might, complement this, or you might go to the field station or go to the foundation to make an observation and do those kinds of things?
And it's nice. I love this because it's so harmonious with our past speakers who've come to Science Saturday. We heard from Amanda recently about picture posts or posts that will be put up. They're in 6 or so locations, and there will be ones at some point, I'm hoping, at the foundation's property, that helps just track changes over time to the landscape of what's happening, changing landscapes that happen there. So that's part of a program called My Coast that Amanda talked about, which is where you can not only learn about, but also help document floods and help forecast floods, as well as drought in other places. So that's one. Of course, there's a very popular app called iNaturalist that a lot of people use to document population changes and biodiversity. It's basically every single thing that we just heard Angela talk about, there's a citizen science project for it. And in fact, you're already doing them there, Angela, when you have community members come in and help you there. Those are parts of citizen science. So my favorite part about this talk today is how Angela really just laid out for us that it's not just one single path forward, and a reminder that some of us doing things in Barnegat Light, we need to be aware of what's happening at the south end of the island, because we share all the same resources. And it's not just our island, it's other parts of New Jersey, it's everybody else who shares the coast. So I'll drop the link in again to show very specific types of citizen science projects that people can get involved in to see things with your own eyes, and also help document things that scientists and decision makers can use.
Right. And then also just a reminder that April 26th at Barnegat Light at the Pavilion, we'll be having a number of the speakers that you heard earlier throughout the year there to talk about their particular projects, the things they're doing. Angela shared with us, she's got a Turpin project, I think, going on that same day. So they may not be there, but at least their information will be there. So any other things that come to your mind, Angela, that you wanted to mention?
No, just want everybody to go to our website. You can sign up for our newsletter on the Field Station website, and our 2025 calendar will be up shortly. You know, we have a couple of early events and cleanups and retreats and things like that, but keep an eye on our website, follow us on social media, LBT Field Station, and you know, we'll get come on down anytime. I'm here every day.
Oh, and one other thing about Long Beach Township, right across from the township building, of course, is the Bay Beach. And on Thursdays, Reclaim the Bay is there. They do a thing fun with shells and little education for the younger set. And then Alliance for a Living Ocean also does some seining there, don't they, on Tuesday?
Yeah, they have a critter roundup on Thursdays. Yeah. So
Thursday, yeah.
yeah.
So there's the township is a long is a long place.
Yeah, that's in our Brant Beach section. And yeah, so we have some of the same groups coming here. So check us out. Check out the calendar.
And is there can we do a plug for the Oyster Farmers film? Is that still
Of course,
available
yeah, we'll
anywhere?
be screening. I'm the producer and environmental consultant for the Oyster Farmers film that came out in 2017. And Corrine Ruff from Surf City is the director, writer, narrator. And that was a film we put together, really a snapshot in time of the oysters' history and resurgence in our bay. And we are screening it on April 9th, I think, down in the bivalve at the Maritime Center down there. So it's you know, 2017, and it's amazing to see how much everything has changed in that time. So we were excited to be called down there to come and speak and do Q&A on the film. So a lot has changed. I mean, you go to the Barnegat Oyster Collective and you see how many different oyster farmers we have in the bay, and the whole tapestry of the bay and the bay usage and harvesting has changed. So it really is if you live here, it's something that you really should be proud of. The fact that people, you know, we have a dozen oyster farmers out in the bay, and then we have these local oysters and of course our clams, and that people can have a hand in just being able to recycle that shell, and it goes back into the water for restoration. It's a beautiful story to tell for the island, for the Barnegat Bay Little Egg Harbor estuary system, and something that everybody should be very proud of, because if not for the work that we've all been doing together for the last 3 decades, you know, this wouldn't be possible, right? You can't just put, just put shell in the bay and think things are going to happen, right? There is a lot of wild growth. People see it when you're out there. I'm amazed by it. You see the wild spat, you see the wild oyster along the bulkheads and on the rocks, and that they need hard surface to grow on, right? So we always say, like, oysters grow on the back of their dead ancestors, right? You need that hard surface in the bay. So there should be no shells in the landfill, is how we sort of described it when we got the county to partner with us to store our shell. That's a lot of valuable resource material going and sitting in a landfill that needs to be back into our bay, and it's growing. And the Oyster Farmers film gave us that picture in time of that history up to that point. So in the conversations that we'll get to have now when we're screening it, just how much has grown and changed. So anytime you're out there and you're ordering oysters, if you see violet skies, you see laughing gulls, Tucker's Islands, sugar shacks, sloop points, these are all local oysters, right? And each of them different, just like
And
a wine
you
grape.
you can eat the local oysters, you can eat the local clams, and you can drink the local beer. I mean,
Yeah, really
what
doesn't
could-
get better.
what could be better?
You know, there's like a little science in there too that just like made, well, you know.
Okay, and Darlene, next week, I don't have my list in front of me. Geez, I'm sorry.
We may need
who's our-
Jenna's help here.
What's that?
We may need Jenna's help here for what's coming up next week. Let's
Hello,
see.
everyone. Yes, we
Hello.
have Samantha Adamsiak from Barnegat Bay Partnership over Zoom next week.
Great.
Oh, well, that'll be great. And a lot of the things that Angela was talking about, things being tied together, the Barnegat Bay Partnership is a place that's kind of like the Council Rocks. All these various organizations, government and non-government, have this meeting place, and the Barnegat Bay Partnership pulls a lot of things together and does some great research. That'll be another really great session. All right, well. 4 minutes early, but I think we can say class dismissed.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Angela.
Thanks for having
Thanks,
me,
everyone.
LBIF. See ya.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank
Enjoy
you
your
so
weekend,
much.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.